Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Pay and welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. Today we have a special guest with us, Marco. He is the head of our research and development division in Blue Ocean Games Guild. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I actually love your set. I can't believe this.
Yeah,
It's so
that's
nice
great.
in person. It's so cool.
It's nice to have you here finally, man. I know we were
Yeah.
talking about this for a little while, and it's good to get you on board. Basically, what I want to do today is spend most of today talking about Axie Infinity. I know that's been
Yeah.
a big focus of yours in the
Yeah,
research
it's actually
department for
captivated a
while.
lot of my time, and it wasn't necessarily that it was my guild duty to spend a lot of time playing this game. It's just that it's a pretty addictive game.
You've been
Um,
saying that.
And so they released the first version of the Axie Origin. I guess you would call it a beta. I'm not sure if it's an alpha or a beta. Is it an alpha? And anyway, it's really, really addictive, and there's no like earning potential. Um, there's nothing except a game, and it's a really fun game. And I found myself for the first few days after I started playing it, I found myself like constantly thinking about how am I going to get better? What's the best way to build a deck? And I don't have any Axies yet because I haven't had any time or money to put towards that because of course our guild is focused on other stuff
Yeah,
financially right
and
now.
and kind of before
Um,
we jump head deep into all that, I'll also mention too, once we get through the Axie stuff, I want to talk a little bit about the state of play to earn and kind of the future, what things are kind of looking like over the next, maybe quarter or year.
yeah,
And just to give you a little background on myself, because I haven't played Axie,
right.
but I'm very well versed in knowing its history, especially
Mhm.
because it pioneered the scholarship model. That's
Yes.
really the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
It
It brought a lot of
showed
people into the
it,
space.
it really created the model for game guilds to be able to exist. So
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
forever known for that. And it has kind of this legacy. But kind of thinking from the other side of it, when you get into play to earn, and this happened to me too, getting into play to earn, you kind of hear really quickly, it's like, ooh, Axie's the thing you kind of stay away from. Like, oh, it's not that great. It's been doing it for a while. There's issues. And that was the general consensus actually coming into the play to earn space was,
Hmm.
don't worry about Axie. It's kind of doing its own thing. But yet you look at the trade volume, you look at its success, and it's like, why is that the general consensus? And I think it's just because market, things were so high valued at some point, they've gone down, but most play to earn titles have done that. So I was really excited to get you and our game guild to start to look a little bit more seriously at it and
So
really try to
yeah,
understand it
that
from an
is
unbiased perspective.
exactly what I did.
Mhm.
And when I was going into this project, I was like, I'm not expecting this to be anything that I can look at and go, oh, this is a good thing that I might actually want to do. I was going into this project expecting it to be like, and what they call a game, a pretty fun, maybe 5 out of 10 type thing, like a lot of the other projects that I've played,
Mhm.
and not necessarily projects that we're invested in, but a lot of the projects that we've played or that I've seen they claim to be an A or double A title of a particular kind, and then you play it and you're realizing that what you're playing is really a shell or not as engaging as that type of game is supposed to be. And then I went and played Axie Infinity, and like I'm a Magic the Gathering player, so I'm like
Mhm.
I have a pretty high
Me
standard
too.
for the way card games should be. You know
Yep.
what I mean? And Axie Infinity is a game like Magic the Gathering is a Turing machine game. You can describe other games well with it
Yes.
that are turn based, and you could describe Axie Infinity with Magic the Gathering terms if you really wanted to. But the point that is there to make is that Axie Infinity is a coherent and balanced game system. And right now, with the Origins beta, and they've been doing regular releases of updates, and most of them like balance patch updates.
Okay.
And most of those balance patch updates directly related to the very things that I was doing or thinking. And oh my gosh, this new combo is super overpowered. I should use this all the time. And then and well, no, we talked to the people in the Discord, and we talked to the people who and we've decided that we're going to nerf this way, and we're going to nerf that way, and we're going to buff this way, and et cetera, et cetera.
So
And
lots
things
of
are
balancing.
so the whole point is that balancing is happening right now, but the game is addictive enough that people want to know, people care. And I would say there's about 150,000 or so on average people weekly that are playing this Axie Infinity beta. Many of them are people who don't have assets in the actual Axie Infinity, and the actual Axie Infinity's last season, as I understand it, is ending, and this will be the new season 1. Will be when.
So they're basically letting you pilot or test or
Yeah, so
pioneer
you
kind of
get
a new
you get
way.
access to like a lot of the, or maybe all of the runes and charms that other people can get their hands on, which are I think in the form of NFTs.
Okay.
And you get your hands on 3 of the starter Axies, which just sort of they are pretty purebred and they have particular set, and
Mhm.
you've got like one attacker and one defender and one sort of I guess you would call them also an attacker, but they're like
Maybe
sort of a
support.
mixed. I would say they're like mixed. You can make them really HP heavy, or you can try to make them an attacker.
Okay.
Anyway, and then you eventually unlock a couple of other starter Axies, they called them, and they're just basic. But I was able to almost make it to the top of the. I was able to make it to the 8th out of 10 tiers on the leaderboard
Nice.
in that zero season, the first zero season that they had.
Okay.
Just with those guys and with management of those runes and charms, and
Mhm.
with good decisions when it concerns deck playing. And those are things that people who play card games a lot are bound to do anyway.
Yep.
And so that's why I think it's important now that they do this like season 0, they're ironing out all the kinks, they're putting a lot of effort into rebalancing the game so that when the first season comes out, it's actually competitive. It's easy to play, but hard to master. And they've really got the easy to play, hard to master thing there. They're just like not quite perfect yet.
I see.
And so a lot of other games are like that too. They're in their alpha or beta playing stage, and they're trying to get the balancing quite right, and trying to get the, you know what I mean? And the important thing for people to do at a stage like this is to remember that what they're playing is an alpha, and what they're playing is not the final version of the game, and they can't base their estimations on earnings or whatever it might be. Not financial advice, by the way. On this alpha version of the game, because it's likely that the game that they're going to end up playing will be different, or
Good point.
So they should play this game, get an idea of how the game will play in the way that it works, and then when the first version of the actual game comes out, there will be changes, and you have
And
to
it's free to
adapt.
play, right? You don't
And
need any
adapting is part
assets
of the
or
game,
anything.
And with any game, adapting is part of the game. So, and it
But
is free to
anyone
play.
can
Yeah,
play it.
it is free to play, and it literally has had me for weeks now, where I've always like, maybe I'll go back and play Axie tonight. I'm done on my work. Like, it's a fun game, and I want to see if I can.
See, and that's what I find so
You know what I
interesting,
mean?
because we talk about this a lot, where a lot of play to earn titles are really missing that fun factor.
Yeah, it tickles my Magic itch in a way that only Magic generally ever has. And then I guess there's a couple of other card games that for a short time friends of mine played them. Were like, oh yeah, let's play. I think there's a trading card game. I can't remember what other trading card games we played, but they're similar to that. And this
It's
game
like
draws.
Hearthstone,
Yeah, like that,
one.
exactly like that.
Mhm.
And this game has drawn inspiration from games like that. I can see to a degree, and it's tickling that itch well.
Oh, nice.
So I'm happy to see where it goes, and I would be happy to play it some more, and I would even be happy to invest in some mid-tier Axies and just be a good enough card player to make mid-tier work for me. You know what I mean? Because I'm having so much fun.
How much time investment do you think it is? Because that's kind of my concern. And just to kind of give a little summary here,
Yeah.
for me, looking from the outside in as a business perspective from the Game Guild, I think there's two key things that have kind of kept me at arm's length from Axie. One was just kind of that general consensus. And normally I know better than to go with the majority. You got to do your own research, figure things out for yourself.
Yes.
That's how you can make an educated decision.
Yeah,
However,
that's right. Actually, and I would say this game is what I would almost call a do your own research game, just the same way as Magic or any of the other card game is. When you find that winning card combination that you like, that you know is going to do the job for you, that's going to get you the edge on those opponents that you're facing, and then maybe you get to a harder opponent and you refine it a little bit, and you've got this thing that you know what I mean?
Mhm.
This game has this. And just that is enough for hundreds of thousands of people to want to play it every week. And so I know once they attach a proper sustainable model on top of this, which it's clear that they've proven that they've been able to do this before, and that when things pick up a little bit, that I suspect that it's going to work that way again, just because people will be drawn back in, like, oh, I know I have this one build that I like, maybe it still works.
But that brings me to my second concern, which is really the main thing that's kept me away from, is the time invested.
Yeah,
I was told that Axie is a grind, and it's like a full-time job for these
it
scholars.
really can be. It
And
really can be. I don't know exactly how much you can play it in a game and how much you can earn in a day, because I've never played the old version of Axie Infinity. I've only ever played the beta version of the new game.
And that's a big reason why I
And-
wanted you to come on and talk about this, because I almost feel like you might not be tainted by that
that's
past
right.
experience.
That's
You've
right.
kind of
So
seen this new shiny
now,
object, new
I
shiny
have invested
opportunity.
quite a bit of time in it in a day,
Okay.
more than a couple of hours sometimes. And the big reason why is because this game has now an adventure mode also, and there's only one chapter right now of the adventure mode. And I would imagine that when you have paid for Axies, you can only get as far as you have charms and whatnot. But since they've got the beta version of the game, you have access to all the charms and you have access to all the runes already. So that's going to give you a significant power boost
Mhm.
that you should expect to see not there later. Like when I go to play Axie Infinity, if I go and buy some starter Axies and go to play Axie Origin on its first season, there's going to be no charms and no
okay.
runes in my inventory because I don't have any of them yet. You know what I mean? I'm going to have to play
I
the adventure
see.
mode and actually fight people and et cetera, to get some of those things. And some of those things are really important for you to,
Okay.
or you can go on the market and try to buy them, right?
Mhm.
So by playing this beta, I would say as a Magic player or as a person who plays card games a lot, I would go, these are the things in my mind that I think I want. And if I was playing Magic the Gathering back in the day when I was in my prime, there would be a number in my head, $2,500, 2,000. This is how much money it's going to cost me to get the deck that I want.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what I mean? And then you just constantly have that in your head whenever you're going to see somebody, oh, do you have any of these cards? Do you have any of this? Oh, that puts the number down in your head. This guy gave me this card that he didn't need or whatever it might be. And for me, when it comes to Axie Infinity, I go, okay, well, where are these things on the market and how much do they cost?
Yep.
And then I would go, okay, well, this is the kind of deck that I want to play. This is the minimum that I'm willing to accept to make that system work that I have in my head, whatever build it is that I have in my head. There's a lot of theory crafting involved, and I'm a theory crafting person.
Me too.
So I can tell that this game would definitely attract those theory crafters. And a lot of the time invested for me would actually be there.
Okay.
Because then you could just buy the assets that you want that do the things that you want and start playing.
Yeah.
Have your fun playing already.
Pre-built.
You've got at least 75 or 80% of the build that you want already because you spent not a bajillion dollars, but you spent less than a bajillion dollars to get the things that you wanted. And there's room for growth. And there's, you know what I mean? So it's going to tick all the boxes for me. There's room for growth. I'm having fun already. I get to feel like I'm competitive. And so there's a level for, you want your game to scale that way. You want to always feel like there's a place for you. You know what I mean? Even at the beginning, you want to feel like, oh, there's other guys at the beginning and I'm better than them. And, I'm growing and, I'm having fun and so are they. And that's what we want everybody to feel like that. And so I feel like that when I'm playing this game and there isn't even any money in it yet. So.
Yeah, see, that's amazing. And I think just for me thinking too, like Axie Infinity is going to be something that people talk about forever. It paved the way for play to earn. I mean, I remember at one point people were even saying crypto is Axie in the Philippines. Like to a lot of people, if you say crypto, they mean, oh, you mean Axie?
Yeah.
Like the language even was so ingrained.
Yeah, a lot of them, this is the only thing that they'd really heard of.
Axie was such a big, and it really showed that, back in 2021, people could make a full-time living playing Axie through these scholar programs in the Philippines. And that when that hit the news, it was like, oh my God, wait, people can make a living playing a game, not just a little bit of change, not just like $10 here, $100. It was like, no, this is like paying for their food and their rent and taking care of their family. And there was amazing stuff all over social media with like people posting cars that they were buying and paying off their parents' mortgages on their homes. And like, it was absolutely incredible to see. And then we kind of had the whole market change happen between January and February, February where things start to go down. And of course, just like I've noticed in a lot of other play to earn projects, everything's kind of doing the same. It's following the market sentiment. So of course, there was a lot of FUD that's been created.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that a lot of people are forgetting is this is normal. And look at what it did for crypto. Look at what it did for all these people. And I have to admit, from a game guild perspective, it almost makes me want to like, okay, this is the time to attack. Like, okay, it's low. The prices are reasonable. Maybe this is the time that we should actually get invested.
Yes,
and
that's how I feel also.
When I was looking at that though, and we were doing a lot of the research, boom, that big hack happened.
Yes.
And the $600+ million.
That is a huge topic that people are going to want to know about.
Right. And I kind of went, ooh, well, everything's on fire right now. Maybe it's an even better time to buy.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing. The worst case scenario is that you buy something that's already worth nothing. You get to play a game that you already enjoy. And it would be the same as playing any other game that you've paid $5 to play that you already enjoy a lot.
See, it's hard from a game guild perspective
there's that.
Too, though.
From a game guild perspective, however, you want a game that you know is going to be sustainable. You want a game that you know is going to be safe, especially if we're talking about Web3 game guilds, because we are now a Web3 game guild. And so playing this game and seeing some of the AMAs that their developers and they've had.
See, I haven't seen any of those yet.
They've had members of Ronin speak sometimes, and I know that the general consensus behind Axie Infinity and Ronin as a whole is that they are taking their time. They're getting quadruple, quintuple audited on every level, at every stage of development to make sure that when this Ronin bridge is opened again, it will be secure. And so that's the important thing, and that's
so they're addressing it. They're being
transparent about this. So, like, guys, if we have another hack like what happened recently, that would be the end of our project. Right now, the project, sure, it might be crippled almost a little bit, and that's like a really heavy word to say. You know what I mean? But and that's honestly, a lot of people are saying that that's the case for the crypto market in general, but it's not. It's just a cycle, just like any other year. There are cycles, and these guys are using this time, this cold time, to make sure that they have crystal clear framework, just like a lot of other projects, crystal clear framework. So that when we get that onboarding of, another 100 million wallets in the next 2 years or whatever, their system can handle it, and their, SLP remains deflationary to a degree, and they're able to, regulate the amount of Axies that come out, et cetera, in the case of Axie Infinity. And for a lot of other projects similar, they want to make sure that they can scale properly as the market comes back up, and it will come back up.
Mhm.
So
Well, they have the two token system, which I really like. They have the
most of
AXS,
my
which is the
favorite
governance,
projects have a two token
and
system
they have
that
the
work in a fashion
SLP,
like
which
that.
is the in-game earnings. I
Yeah.
remember even at some point they were saying there were like businesses in the Philippines that were accepting SLP as payment for goods and services, and that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, for a while.
You know,
That's
and
really cool. I agree with that.
but it's interesting to hear like the deflationary. I don't know a lot about the tokenomics necessarily between those two tokens. Like SLP, from what it looks like to me, is something that just it's almost infinite supply. It's the in-game token.
Yeah, it's just a thing that people used, and it's
Right.
going to have a value based on how quickly people want to get it to do those
So
things in
how
game.
are they going to implement? Is there a burning mechanic? Is there like can you invest millions of that to buy land?
So
like I'm curious to see how that goes.
all of these systems are all my understanding is that it all revolves around just the same way as any other card game, which cards at the end of the day are in your deck and what they do and how you use them.
Okay.
So what that means to me, because Axie Infinity is a game where you have 3 axes. They sort of, you've got a grid of 9, I guess, spaces, and where you place your axes will generally determine by default where they're gonna, when they're gonna get hit.
Okay.
So some moves will say they only hit the furthest enemy, and some moves will not say anything, and they generally just hit the closest enemy. You know what I mean? So generally, you'll put the axie that you want to stay alive the best in the back, and you know what I mean. You'll put your tank axie in the front. And your axes are really just made up of 6 parts, and each part is actually a card. And so when you have 3 axes, 18 parts, you've got a deck of 18 cards. That's your deck. You know what I mean? So you draw 5 cards, you play your cards, whatever the way that it works. And when all of your cards are drawn and they all go into your discard pile, what happens? It goes back into your draw pile and it's shuffled, and you just do it again.
I see.
So you've got a deck of 18. So if to me as a Magic player, I'm like, oh my God, my deck size is only 18 cards. I can really pick which cards I want.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means to me, because I'm used to 60 or more, 40 or more. You know what I mean? So to really be able to choose the cards that you want. And then I started seeing some of the higher tier, like bot Axie teams that people were using in this Axie against me. I'm using my default team and I'm up here in like rank 8-1 or whatever it is. And people are using a lot of teams that affect how many cards there are in your deck and make you play cards and waste energy in your deck. Oh, I'm going to put this card in your deck that makes, it's goo, and you have to draw it and you have to play it. Otherwise it goes back into your deck again and you have to, you know what I mean?
Interesting.
So like that was a huge thing. And for me, I was playing the exact opposite. The tools that were given me with these basic axes is that I was able to increase the number of energies that I had each turn and play maybe 4 cards in a turn as opposed to 3, and maybe draw extra cards so I could compensate, because I'm like, well, I'm a Magic player. If I have too much mana and no cards, it doesn't help me, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's play around with this a little bit. And literally in my sleep, I'm thinking, how am I going to get the energy to do this properly? And what's the best way to get the most energy? And I'm doing math in my head. You know what I mean? I made it all the way up to the top there with just the regulars because I thought about it a lot and because I understood the mechanics of the game. And it's a really solid mechanic game. So
and that's what gets me excited about it.
That's why I think people will always end up coming back to it. And that's why I think that people will always want that particular Axie that's bred in a particular way. And it's really the Axies at the end of the day, to me, that are interesting the most to me. Because I'm a person who wants to play the game. And so owning my deck basically would be the most interesting thing to have to me. And if the meta is going to keep changing, then eventually I'm going to keep revisiting and go, well, how can I change this a little bit? Well, do I want to breed to get that, or do I want to just buy a new Axie? And that's going to be the thing that keeps driving the economy, the same as any other.
Well, that actually brings me to my next point, which is really onboarding people into crypto, because that's what gives me a lot of respect for Axie. I feel like it's a great, not only has it already proven this, it's been the best onboarding platform for play to earn, period. Nobody can argue with that. I think it's already up to I can't even remember the amount of volume. It's so high, right? And I think the daily trade volume at one point got to 400 million, which is just
That's
incredible.
An interesting point to me. So there's a lot of projects, actually 2 in particular, that we are invested in. The first one's Heroes of Mavia. The second one's, well, we're not invested in Axie Infinity, but we're talking about Axie Infinity. Yeah. And they are the single two most used examples that I have when I'm talking to friends of mine. They always tell me, oh, well, I don't understand the point of NFTs. I'm like, yes, actually you do. Remember that time when we found that item in that one game and it was 1 in a million and everybody was super stoked about it? What if you could sell it to your friend for $1,000? And he was like, absolutely, I want it. And you just didn't want it anymore. Do you want that $1,000 or don't you? This is a system that allows games to have that.
That's right.
That's all it is. And when you put it in the context of Heroes of Mavia, you go, well, have you ever played Clash of Clans? And so for me, whenever I put it in the context of Axie Infinity, it's like, well, have you ever played Magic? Do you want to own your deck and just be able to use your deck? Then go and either breed Axies or buy them and get those parts that you want on each Axie and get those guys that you want and have the parts in the right places so that the right pieces are getting, or the right, Axies are getting attacked. Your tank Axie's taking the damage and somebody's healing him who's not getting killed right away or whatever. You have a plan. You know what I mean? So you really just say, just like any other game, and it's so much fun.
See, and that's why I need to play it. I need to take a
Yeah.
deep dive in, especially
Yeah,
because
you absolutely do. I
the
think
new version is free, and
you should come with me and play the game.
yeah, I totally will. And I mean, even just for the history and understanding that a little bit more because of what it's done for play to earn, I feel like I owe it homage almost a little bit to do that. But like I said, there were some things holding me back: the amount of time committed, just the general FUD around it, and yeah, I don't usually buy into any of that, but
Excuse me.
just coming into play to earn, being told, don't worry about Axie, focus on everything else. It was like, why? And then I had to kind of dig into the further, and nobody really had a great answer other than just, well, market sentiment. It's like, well, look at what they've done for play to earn. Look at what they've done for these countries. This is absolutely amazing. And I'm also a big believer that when you've got negative FUD, usually that means there's a polarization going on. There's a lot of
Yes,
good
there's
happening
always a
at the
vocal
same time.
minority when there's a positive majority is generally the way
That's
that I feel
right. So
about it.
you'll always
With a
kind of
lot of
get both
things.
sides of the same coin, especially when it
And
comes to
you
social
can't
media.
always be sure that that's what's going on.
That's
but
right.
generally, if you trust your instincts, like 75 or 80% of the time, that's what's going on. And I
Yeah.
think that's what's going on here too. And the only reason why I think that now and not when I was on the outside is because I really had a chance to play this game.
Yeah. And now you kind of get to see that it's actually that fun. And like
Yeah,
I
it's a
like
fun game.
Magic too quite a bit.
I don't care what happens to the project. If I can keep playing it for free, I'll keep playing it because I genuinely enjoyed playing this game.
See, and that's why I'm interested, because to hear that it's checking those boxes, it's fun, it's strategic, you don't even necessarily care about the investment opportunity, shows me that they're doing something right, because that's what play to earn has been missing in a lot of these games and a lot of
Mhm.
these titles, where they're raising all this money, they're doing all these land sales, and then you're just logging into a web-based browser game to click on a shiny object every couple hours to collect your tokens, which is great for now, but we all want that next
See,
thing. We want
that's
that fun
another
factor.
huge thing that I think people don't understand. Why is there a bunch of games where all I do is log in and click on a thing and get resources? Well, think about it in real life when people do things to get resources. What do they use those resources to do? Stuff in the real world.
Mhm.
So what sort of stuff in the real world can we do in the virtual world that you can't do in the real world? The biggest one that pops into my head is, and it can be done in the real world and shouldn't be done in the real world, but it's actually war. You know what I mean? You want to fight each other, or you want to have a battle game or something like that, and you make that take resources the same way it does in the real world, you've generated an economy right there. We all know how that economy works. Nobody loves it, but it is an economy. It is a thing that happens.
That's a good
Whenever a
point.
war happens, it does have an economic effect. And that economic effect can be replicated digitally for fun with assets using the crypto network. And that generating assets and just clicking on stuff is the first stage in that machine. The second
you're
stage in
right.
that machine is, let's put a stressor on that. Let's go have battles, or let's have wagered matches, or let's make a new game that and
Yeah.
you can only use these, and if you use them, there's a risk. You know what I mean? Just like in real life, that's you know what I mean. If somebody comes and burns your farm down, well, now you can't grow any vegetables anymore.
Mhm.
So
And I think
I suspect that that's what these things are going to do in a lot of these projects
Okay.
that we've researched. I suspect that that's what they're going to do in the future.
Me
They're going to introduce a stressor to their already stable system.
Wasn't that the most fun part of Axie?
Yes.
To use the PvP
Absolutely,
aspect and the
100%.
competitive side? Yeah.
100%. I would totally just try to figure out how I can do all that other stuff just so that I can get the right Axies that I like, so that I can fight people with them. Because it's like, that's why I liked Magic too. I wanted to build my deck and play against my friends.
Right on.
Plain and simple.
Well, thanks so much for spending a lot of time talking about that. This has really
Yeah.
been educational for me. I know
Yeah, it's
you've
been a lot
to-
of fun for me to finally be on the other side of the screen. Man.
Yeah.
I'm like one of your biggest fans.
And well, thank you. And I kind of just want to end it talking a little bit about play to earn and kind of where it's going in the future, because there's really something quite interesting that I've noticed. And there's actually a recent research article that just came out through Cointelegraph with a whole bunch of research partners. I'll be sure to put the link down in the bottom so that people can get access to it.
That's a juicy one.
But they were talking about how even with all the market sentiment going on, GameFi in general is really showing a lot of strength right now. So basically what that means is it's kind of bottomed out.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the
This
titles
is as bad as it could possibly get.
that's what
A
they're
bear
generally
market with
saying.
people having difficulties especially for Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity has had some recent difficulties with their own stuff in the middle of a bear market.
Yes.
It could not get worse than this.
But the ROI and the time or the
Excuse
amount
me.
of time invested to get your money back doesn't change quite so much. And this is
Mhm.
what I find
That's right.
interesting, because if you buy now, you've still got that 1 month, 2 month, 3 month typical ROI with a lot of the games compared to when you bought high. So I feel like this is a great time to start to accumulate assets. It's a great time to have conviction in projects. And it's actually really exciting for GameFi to see that it's really maturing and actually able to handle this and kind of weather the storm.
Well,
so to
it
speak.
can weather the storm. It's important to remember the reason why that it can weather the storm is because none of us are just going to suddenly decide that we're not interested in doing this anymore.
That's right.
We all want this. We all want to be able to, we've all wanted to play games and be able to get something from it for our entire lives. And we've always
Yes.
been told, oh, well, you can't just get anything from playing games. It's a waste of your time. It's no longer a waste of your time. Even if it's just a teeny tiny bit, not a waste of your time, we can all be such good gamers that we can make it worth our time.
That's right.
Because that's what we've always done as gamers, as a guild. That's what we've always done, is
Yes.
play games and play them so well that it's worth our time,
And it's nice to see
to our standard. As a
all
person,
this
personally.
research backing that up and
Yeah.
basically saying, yes, GameFi is here to stay. It's maturing. It's
Absolutely.
weathering the storm. It's a great economy. It's great for gaming.
Mhm.
It's still in its infancy. It's only kind of up from here. And sure, the market could get worse. Stuff could happen. But to see that all that research is really kind of reinforcing what I know a lot of us have been hoping for, I think is just really great and bullish for GameFi overall, because
Mhm.
now other investors are going to look at that and go, okay, this isn't such a high risk investment anymore. This is more of a long-term tech kind of option
Yeah,
that we want to get involved in, because yes, we want players in GameFi, but we also need investors,
that's right.
right? We need
Absolutely.
a mixture of both. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what the future is going to bring. I definitely will give Axie a spin with you. Thanks so much for the
Absolutely. Well,
recommendation.
maybe we'll have to do a thing about it later.
Yeah,
on, like
that
with
would be
some-
great. And I just wanted to say thanks for everyone for joining us today for our episode. It's been a real pleasure having him here with us today. I'll be sure to leave that link to the research report, like I mentioned. And until next time, cheers.